Welcome back to our Explainer series. Today, we're diving into the science behind some of the most common stomach remedies out there. Turns out there's a really fascinating chemical balancing act happening inside you every time you reach for some relief.
I mean, you've probably reached for an antacid at some point, right? But have you ever stopped to think about what's actually going on in there? Let's pull back the curtain on the chemistry that brings that sweet, sweet relief to your digestive system.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the problem itself, this whole acid imbalance thing. Then we'll look at the two main ways to fix it, the trade-offs you have to make, and finally, we'll get to know the key players in the antacid world.
So, our digestive system, it relies on this super delicate balance of gastric acid. It's absolutely essential for breaking down food. But problems pop up when that balance gets thrown off, either by having too little acid or, way more commonly, having way too much.
First, let's talk about the road less traveled, which is when your stomach isn't making enough acid. This is a condition called hypochlorhydria, and believe me, it can really mess with your digestion.
The solution here? Well, it's a category of drugs called acidifiers. And just like the name suggests, their one and only job is to ramp up the acidity of the stomach's juices to get those levels back where they should be for proper digestion.
Now, there are two really different ways to do this, which is pretty cool. First, you've got ammonium chloride, which cleverly uses your body's own machinery to make more acid. Then there's dilute HCl, which is just a direct acid supplement. It's actually so strong you have to drink it through a straw to protect the enamel on your teeth. Wild, right? Okay, let's switch gears to the side of the equation we're all a lot more familiar with, having too much stomach acid. This is called hyperacidity, and yep, it's the bad guy behind that uncomfortable burn from heartburn and indigestion.
And this is where antacids get their moment to shine. They're basically chemical bases, and they're designed for one single purpose: to go in there and neutralize all that extra acid, giving you relief from things like gastritis and even peptic ulcers.
So, if the whole point is just to neutralize acid, is any old base good enough? Well, not exactly. It turns out scientists and doctors have a really specific wish list for what makes an antacid truly great. So, what are they looking for?
The perfect antacid is a real workhorse. It's got to work fast, but it also has to last long enough to do the job. And this is a big one. It shouldn't cause acid rebound. That's when your stomach panics and makes even more acid after the medicine is gone. It also needs to stay in your gut, not cause other bathroom problems. And of course, it needs to be affordable. That's a lot to ask for.
And here's where we get to the heart of the matter. Getting all of those ideal features from just one single ingredient is incredibly hard. A lot of antacids, they kind of fail on the side effects front, which leads to a classic dilemma.
Just take a look at these two super common antacid ingredients. On one hand, you've got aluminum hydroxide. It's great at neutralizing acid, but it's known to cause constipation. On the other hand, you have magnesium hydroxide. It's also a fantastic neutralizer, but it has a laxative effect, which means diarrhea. You've just traded one problem for another.
And this right here shows the brilliant solution that drug makers came up with. Why not just combine them? See, if you put an ingredient that causes constipation together with one that causes diarrhea, their opposite side effects can actually cancel each other out, leaving you with just the acid relief you were looking for in the first place. Pretty smart.
Okay, now that we get the strategy, let's meet three of the most common players you'll find in these remedies. We're going to break down the specific pros and cons for each one.
First up to the plate is sodium bicarbonate, which you probably know as simple baking soda. Its claim to fame is one thing: speed. It works incredibly fast to neutralize stomach acid.
But that speed definitely comes at a price. It's absorbable, so it can get into your bloodstream and actually throw off your body's overall pH balance. It's also famous for causing that acid rebound we talked about, and it makes carbon dioxide gas, which leads to bloating and burping. That's why it's really only good for very rare short-term relief.
Next, let's talk about aluminum hydroxide. Now, unlike sodium bicarbonate, this one is the slow and steady wins the race type. It gives you a more sustained, longer-lasting effect, and it's non-absorbable, so it stays right there in the gut where it's supposed to be.
Now, its pros are actually pretty cool. It can form a protective coating over an ulcer, which helps it heal. It also binds with phosphate, which can be really helpful for some patients with kidney problems. But like we said, its big drawbacks are constipation and the fact that it can interfere with how your body absorbs other drugs.
And our final agent on the list is magnesium hydroxide, which you might know better as milk of magnesia. This one brings back the speed, acting pretty quickly and with some really good neutralizing power.
Just like the aluminum one, it's non-absorbable, which is great, but its defining feature is that laxative effect, which leads to diarrhea. And this part is super important. Because of the risk of magnesium toxicity, it is absolutely not suitable for anyone with kidney problems.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Managing stomach issues isn't about finding one single magic bullet. It's a careful, calculated, balancing act. It's about picking the right tool for the job. And often, it's about cleverly combining them to get all the good stuff while canceling out all the bad stuff.
So the next time you look at a box of antacids on the shelf, you'll actually understand the precise chemical compromise that's happening inside that little tablet. You're not just choosing a product, you're choosing a trade-off. Thanks for tuning in.